Coming up in round 8 of the A-League men's, Central Coast Mariners looking for back-to-back wins as they host Adelaide United. Perth Glory looking for their first 3 points of the season at home against Newcastle Jets. And Auckland FC have a very tantalising away fixture at Melbourne City. It's time for my preview and predictions. Would love to get your thoughts on the upcoming weekend's games in the comments section, so join the conversation. We're going to go through one game at a time chronologically. And Friday night, Central Coast Mariners at home against Adelaide United. Now, we should say for the Reds, obviously they've made a fantastic start to this season, first of all. 4 wins, 2 draws, that win against Newcastle Jets last week. And look, they could totally win this game. Mariners have looked good in sort of recent fixtures against Adelaide United. Obviously, they've met a few times in recent final series. Central Coast Mariners, I remember at the final day of last season in the regular season, defeating Adelaide United to secure the Premier's Plate, which was a historic match for the Mariners. But the Reds here, look, this is the second time these two teams have played. It was back in round 2 that Mariners played Adelaide United. And the Reds were really impressive in that first half, really pinned Mariners back. A tactical change from the Central Coast in the second half meant that game ended in a 1-1 draw. And look, the Mariners, we're coming off this win against Sydney FC. Yes, the Sky Blues were reduced to 10 men, but I think Mariners was arguably our best performance of the season so far. Alu Kowal finally finding some form in front of goal. I like the formation that we played and the personnel that Mark Jackson chose for that game as well, and playing Mikhail Doka basically as a number 10, sort of floating around Alu Kowal. I think that could be sort of the new position for Mikhail Doka going forward. We've obviously seen him playing, either on the right-hand side or the left-hand side so far this season, but sort of playing that Josh Nisbet role from last season as one of those front players, I think could really work for Mikhail Doka, and we saw him, provide that lovely assist for Alu's second goal against Sydney last weekend. So in terms of score prediction, I think Mariners could well win this game and bring Adelaide's first defeat of the season. Again, we should acknowledge how good the Reds are at the moment, how good their season has been up to this point. They've got a fantastic team, and a lot of these players are in great form at the moment, with the likes of Stephen Mork, who got on the score sheet last week. Zach Clough has made a great start to the season. 2 young, dangerous strikers in Luke Ivanovic and Archie Goodwin. But Mariners, again at home here, I'm going to back us for the win, man. I said a draw last week against Sydney FC, but I think it is going to finally click into gear for the Mariners, as it did around about this time last year as well. I'm going to go for Mariners for a 2-1 win here once again. Saturday's fixtures, Wellington Phoenix back at home against Macarthur FC. The Phoenix obviously hugely disappointed after losing another New Zealand derby last week away to Auckland. Returning home against Macarthur FC here. The Bulls, obviously, it's been an inconsistent season for them. 2 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses. Plenty of goals in their games. They did have that scoreless draw with Western United last week. Western were probably the better team in that one. Could have come away with a win in the end. So, the Bulls, can they get back into some winning form here against Wellington? I think it's a really tough ask. We know Phoenix are a top team despite that loss against Auckland. I mean, we look at Phoenix, they've, across 6 games, they've lost 2, but both of those losses have been to rivals Auckland FC. I think Phoenix will win this game. I think it will be a comfortable win in the end for Wellington Phoenix. We shouldn't deny, MacArthur's quality. We do know that. Dangerous players, especially if they get away on the counter-attack, but I think Phoenix will be well set up to deal with that counter-attack from the Bulls. I'm going to go 3-1 for the Phoenix. Sydney FC hosting Western United. It's been a funny season for the Sky Blues. Look, they're still in a good position, but you look at the A-League form and 3 wins and now 3 losses after losing last week against Central Coast Mariners. Last week it was interesting seeing the setup, and they've been playing Douglas Costa more so as a number 10, so sort of in a central role, floating over to the right at times, where Joe Lolly's stationed, and Anas Wahine playing at left. I'm not a Sydney FC fan, obviously, but I think it'd be much more effective, going forward in attack, to see Anas Wahine playing a central role there, shift Costa out to the wing there. But obviously, Ufuk Tale trying something different, trying to find the right setup for that dangerous quartet of attacking players We know they've got a fantastic team, Sydney FC. Western United, I don't know if they'll have the quality to match the Sky Blues in this game. A very young defence. Yes, they have put in some decent performances here and there. Another clean sheet last week at home against Macarthur FC. But again, I mean, you just look at the two teams on paper, and this should be a win at home here for Sydney FC. So I wouldn't expect Western United to grab 3 points in this game. But they could well challenge Sydney FC. Obviously, you have to be switched on with the likes of Hiroshi Ubasuki up front, who is always a danger. But the Sky Blues, I reckon, will win this game pretty comfortable in the end. I'm going to go 2-0 for the Sky Blues. Western Sydney Wanderers, Brisbane Roar. We've got 4 games on Saturday. Huge day coming up this weekend. Wanderers had the bye last week, coming up against a Brisbane Roar side who is still without a win. 1 draw, 5 losses. Look, we're only 6 games. Well, Brisbane are 6 games into their season, but it's a little bit worrying in the moment for Ruben Zankovic. I think it's just not clicking in the moment. Despite all the new personnel they brought in the off-season, these guys have been, featuring the likes of Billity, Waleed Shaw, Raphael Strike has been starting the last couple of games as well. Ben Halloran in there as well. It's still not working at the moment for Brisbane Roar, and they have to figure it out soon because they are seriously slipping down the ladder. And it's pretty incredible to think. Look, obviously, a lot of talk has been around Perth Glory and how much they've been struggling so far this season. But one team sit below Perth, and that is Brisbane Roar. So, can they get a result here against West Sydney Wanderers? Look, Wanderers, we just don't really know what we're going to get from them. I think at home, though, I'm going to say they win this game. We remember back, a few weeks ago when they defeated Newcastle Jets by 4 goals. When they're going, West Sydney Wanderers are a really dangerous team. Milanovic has made a great start to this season. Keep an eye on him in the wide areas. Borello is always a threat going forward. And, of course, he'll be playing against his former team here as well. Gotta be a Wanderers win, but it could be one of those chaotic games. I'm going to say like a 3-2. We did see another chaotic game last time. Brisbane were down in Sydney to play Macarthur 4-4. I'm going to go 3-2 for the Wanderers. Perth Glory, Newcastle Jets. Interesting game to watch because you've got 2 teams who maybe low on confidence in the moment. Perth Glory, just the 2 draws and 5 losses, still looking for their first win. They've scored 4 goals and conceded 20 goals. Now, David Zrilic has to figure out how to just stop conceding goals, first of all. And he's talked about that a little bit in his press conference, how he's been setting up his team to try and do that, to try and go defense first and shore things up at the back. But they are at home here. After a few games away. At home here against Newcastle Jets. Now, the Jets just 1 win and now 5 losses, losing last week to Adelaide United. This is sort of shaping up as a must-win game for Perth Glory. It's so early on this season. And look, they've got a decent run of games coming up as well. After this, they're away to Brisbane, who are currently bottom of the table. And then after that, home to Macarthur FC, potentially a winnable game as well. So this could be a real sort of critical moment here in this season for Perth Glory early on, just 7 games in. Where they really have to win, not just for, to get the season back on track, to get 3 points, but for the fans as well. You can see online there is a real, obviously, no surprise, there's real concern and, a lot of upset fans about the way Glory is operating at the moment and the way they're playing, and it has to change quickly. And I think there's already a lot of growing pressure on David Zrilic. Glory, can they do it? I say they do. Look, Newcastle Jets, quality players here and there, but again, just as a team struggling for confidence at the moment, just 1 win after 6 games. I think Perth Glory do win this game. I think they will get away with it in the end. I'm going to go 2-1 for Glory. Big game for Adam Taggart. Maybe he'll be looking to get on the score sheet once again in this game. Our final game of the round, Melbourne City hosts Auckland FC. In probably the game of the round, you got a City side who were very impressive in their 4-1 victory over Brisbane last week in Auckland FC. Another win in a New Zealand derby. 6 consecutive wins. 10 scored, only the 1 conceded. So they finally conceded a goal last week. Melbourne City are going to give them a real test. And look, Auckland FC, obviously they've been, they've had a favourable draw. They've had a lot of home games early on here. Melbourne City, dude. I mean, look, we think back to a couple of weeks ago, Melbourne City lost 2-0 at home. So you don't really know what you're going to get from Melbourne City at the moment. But we do know that when they're in form, when their players are clicking, like Andreas Kuhn and Jonathan Cohen have been very good. They were great last week. If these guys get, start the match, strongly, they're hard to stop, Melbourne City. So Really fascinating battle. It's tricky to call. I don't think it's necessarily going to be another win for Auckland. I did call a draw for the New Zealand derby last week. Obviously, Auckland got the win in the end, and I think the home fans definitely play a factor to that. I'm not doubting Auckland's ability on the road, but I do think this match will end in a draw. I think because of Melbourne City and what they provided, and especially after watching them last week, I was like, okay, this team is still the real deal. I think at the moment, Melbourne City. Still with a number of players out with injury. So I'm going to say draw. I'm going to go 1-1 draw. I'm going to go 1-1 draw here. But goodness me, it's a tricky one to call. Would love to hear your thoughts on this one because Melbourne City hosting Auckland FC. How do you guys think? How do you guys think Auckland will go on the road in these away games? They did win in United round in Sydney a few weeks ago. But away to Melbourne City, tricky test. There is round 8. It is coming up this week. Keep an eye on the round recap coming up later in the weekend as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name's Lockie. This is Coast Football. Hit the like button on the way out, and I'll see you in the next one.